I heard a voice outside my tent in the Appalachian Mountains. It sounded just like me. This was by far the most terrifying experience of my life. I come from an outdoorsy family and camping was the way we spent most of our vacations. I always enjoyed it and never really grew out of it. Unfortunately, my work had taken me pretty far away from the rest of the family, so these days I tend to camp alone. It all started on a routine camping trip in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I lived close by, and it had the best camping spots in my area. I made my way to my favorite spot a couple miles into the dense forest and began setting up camp. I didn't think much of it at the time, but the hike to the spot was noticeably quiet. It was like all the sounds of the forest had just vanished. After setting up camp around 5 or 6 o'clock, I had some pre-packed dinner and posted up beneath a tree to do some reading. I had been at it for almost an hour and was so deep in the book that I almost didn't hear it. Hey, someone called from off in the distance. It sounded far away, so I figured someone else might just be out in the area and didn't think much of it. I resumed my book and before I knew it, I had drifted off to sleep. I was suddenly jolted awake by the sound of yet another hey. Only this time it was like someone had yelled it through a foghorn directly into my ear. I stumbled up and turned around just in time to see something rustling through the bushes headed in the opposite direction. I gave chase, but whoever it was moved much faster than me and easily lost me. After I was sure there was no catching up, I returned to camp. I took a quick inventory to make sure nothing had been taken. Nothing was missing, and I was just about to write it off as some angsty teens pulling a prank when I noticed the tree. As I slept, someone had carved my initials into the bark on the other side. I'll admit that this had me a little freaked out. The only identification I had on me was in my wallet. That wallet was in my jeans pocket, and I really doubted someone managed to get it off me while I was sleeping and then put it back without me waking up. I debated leaving, but the sun was starting to set, and I wouldn't be able to pack up and get back to the car in the dark. Ultimately, I decided to sleep with one eye open and one hand clutching a hunting knife I had brought with me. I zipped up my tent and called it a night. I didn't sleep at all for the first couple of hours. I was just too wired from the day's events. The second I started to drift off, the footsteps started. They were extremely soft, like they were walking barefoot. I probably never would have heard them if I wasn't already so paranoid. I listened as they got closer and closer to the tent. When the footsteps reached the tent, they stopped. I didn't move a muscle or make a sound. Several minutes went by in complete silence, and then I heard, "Hey, are you in there?" I froze up completely. Whatever was outside the tent had matched my voice exactly. The tone, the accent, even the pitch were all identical to mine. It was like someone had run my voice through one of those high voice capture programs. I stayed perfectly still. Several more minutes went by in complete silence before I heard my voice again. "Anybody in there?" it whispered. Now it was so close I could see the outline of a head through the tent. 2 more minutes of silence went by before it suddenly backed away. I could hear footsteps moving away from the tent until they faded away entirely. I didn't sleep the rest of the night in case it decided to come back. I just stared at the entrance to the tent and tried to figure out what I had just witnessed. Luckily, the rest of the night went without incident. At the first sign of sunlight, I packed up my stuff as quickly as possible and headed home. I've never been able to explain what happened that day. I still go camping, but never alone and never in that area.